My company doesn't want owners. They just want followers. They don't want people, because ownership has autonomy. It's like, we want you to take ownership. Then they're like, okay, I'm going to take it, but that means I've got some autonomy. They are disproportionately having a negative impact on those that are disengaged, those that I call renters.
Welcome back to another episode of Limitless. Today I have with me Greg Hawkes. He's the founder of Hawkes Agency, and we got him at the right time because he has a fresh new book out on the shelves that we will dig into talk about today. And Greg will talk about engagement with ownership culture. Greg, a warm welcome to you. How are you?
Nick, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. Man, I am just thrilled to be alive today and getting to contribute to the world.
That's a beautiful way to kick us off here. And I know that you have a book just out on the shelves. Just a few days ago, I saw on your social media the post. Can you share, first of all, what is the book about?
No, it's a lot, Nick, but it's the title is Act Like an Owner. And I've worked with organizations, in a consulting role for the last 15 years. And oftentimes both the leaders themselves are like, we need people to step up, right? We use the word engagement, or oftentimes we use the word buy. We need people to buy in, or we want people to own their role. And so I've owned investment properties, single family homes, for the last 25 years. And so I thought, I'll put together this idea of things I've learned between people who rent in some of the homes that I have, who act like renters, or some of them act like owners, and some of them act like vandals. And so I was like, let's focus on what it really means to be a place that creates an environment where people can buy in. So that's what it's about. And in a nutshell, that's what it's about.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's much more to it, because writing a book, as we shared offline just before we get started, takes a bit of an effort, doesn't it, Greg?
Yeah, yes, it does. It's a lift. And the book itself is a lift, and then getting it to the public is a whole nother lift.
Yeah. And I know you talk about the mindset every leader must recognize, and also how leaders then can turn the tide on engagement with the ownership culture. Perhaps we can start there. Can you elaborate?
Sure. Like I said, I talk about these mindsets of an owner's mindset, a renter's mindset, or a vandal mindset. And it parallels kind of with Gallup's engagement surveys, like people are engaged or disengaged or actively disengaged. And, where I think the miss that a lot of leaders have is there's so much emphasis on the disengaged. How do we get those who are disengaged to be engaged? When the truth is, the third category is the folks called the actively disengaged. Those are who I refer to as the vandals in the organization. They are disproportionately having a negative impact on those that are disengaged, those that I call renters, those that have decided, and I describe the owner mindset as people who still bring their heart, head, and hands, right? They still care. They have a passion. They use their imagination. They self-excited about what the things we're doing. Whereas renters, who are the disengaged, they're not bad people. They're not destructive to our organizations. They just have learned or decided it's not worth the investment. I'm not getting a return on my investment, so I'm not going to care that much. I'm not going to think about it after work. So I'm just going to show up and do my job. I'm going to bring my hands. I got the skills, show up on time, do a good job, then go home, and that's it. And so the idea for a leader is not saying, what can we do with them to get more out of them? It's one of the reasons they've discovered or decided it's just not worth making the investment is because that last group of people, they'll be referred to as toxic or saboteurs, or people who live outside of everyone else's expected standards. Those are the folks that you have to really not just manage, but decide how you're going to remove them, arrest and evict. That's what I say with owners. You want to keep encouraging. With renters, you want to create lease purchase options so they can go, how can we buy back in? And with vandals, arrest and evict those suckers, because that will cause your disengaged to become more engaged. And so it's a philosophy that not everybody works with. They put so much emphasis. And so the mindset is recognize these different areas of categories of how people think, so that you can target the right one to get the results you want. That's it.
And how does that then help to go beyond the surface there, to really go deeper into engagement?
Well, what it enables people to do is really it really requires leaders to say, what is the return my team is looking for, these individuals? Because, Nick, everybody shows up to work wanting something from it. People who are fully engaged, they're getting something back. People who are renting, they want something. And so when you understand that mindset and understand that all of us are making an investment and we all want to return. And so I talk about those returns in these 5 different ways. Emotional. So there's a lot of people, Nick, you probably know people who are like go-to people. When there's a crisis, when it's like, call me, I'll figure it out, I'll make it happen. Like they see themselves that way. So when you understand their return is they get an emotional hit out of giving themselves to a project or a challenge or an obstacle or something that's, off course, it gets emotional. Of course, people want a financial return. Once you get that established, a settled point, of course, everybody would like more money, but some people are motivated also to be like, hey, there's a bonus. I got to hit these numbers. I got to do these things. So understanding that's what motivates people. There are people who are opportunity motivated. They're like, listen, I want to go above and beyond because I know it's going to open doors for my career, right? Young Gen Z, young leaders that are like, hey, I want to see my career go somewhere. Their return is, I want opportunities. There are other people who are relational. They're like, hey, I want to get in the room with people. What would really be that if I could get mentored by, or I could be on a subset of a team that does this. And so, and the last one is growth. There are people who are like, I just want to keep growing. Like I'm a professional, I'm growing. I don't want to get stagnant. So one of the returns I get from work is that the challenges keep me growing. So for the leader to go deeper, it's really understanding what is it this employee really gets from going above and beyond, from investing themselves in a meaningful way, so that I can make sure the return on their investment is aligned with really what they hope they achieve.
I love the fact that you study on the different intention and the motivations of people to come to work. As you rightly say, some might come there because they want the social element, they want the relationships, while others actually want to grow a career, others want to make money. And typically as an organization, we put them all in one bucket, don't we, Greg? We
just put them all in money. That's why the boomers were like, hey, we're paying them. That generation was like, we're paying them. Be grateful you're getting paid. Quit asking for more. And and work changed over the last 20 years and they've moved, and the Gen X is now in a greater leadership role, but it's that idea of saying, there are people who really do get other things from the workplace, and if we're really smart about it, we'll retain the highest caliber of people, because those who understand what they're getting are really the most intentional about what they're giving.
And then when the company feel that this is not working, then they're trying to perhaps come up with perks, slogans, and nice branding. Let's have a team bonding event, and they're throwing that at everyone. And then still it doesn't work. So how can we make it more tangible?
Well, and listen, I'm all for team bonding. I speak at corporate events and I speak at team meetings, and I love when there's a sincerity of intention behind it. Some of the language I use, Nick, is like shaping culture, shaping environments, because the difficulty an organization has, and that's why I love working in the culture space, because when you create this ownership culture, then people have a place to thrive in it. I'll give an example that, my philosophy is everybody starts out day one as an owner. And then what happens is they start sharing their ideas, and they're excited. They want to show up to a meeting and they're like, I got stuff I want to contribute and I'm excited about it. And everybody else is like, oh, bring it down, newbie, bring it down. We're going to crush your spirit too, right? Like we're going to smash all that out of you. And we just want to get to work. We just want to get through our meeting. And so, the idea of how do they create an environment, for me, is really what it is. How do we create this environment where we have to work within the parameters of our resources, have to work within the parameters of what our abilities and availabilities are, but how do we enable people to buy in, get to contribute, get to make big commitments, get to create value, and have space for all of that in the midst of them producing, serving clients? Like that alignment is really what leaders are tasked to do. Is how do they find that alignment of the things that cause people to feel buy-in? Because this, Nick, when people stop contributing, they stop being committed. And when they stop being committed, that's the corner of taking ownership for the area that they're in. So creating a space is really like being really intentional, not just about tasks and perks and these the specific little things. It's like, what about the whole environment? Like, leaders are environmentalists. How do we shape this space that the people in it can grow to the fullest extent and be the most productive? So that's why, like, the perks, the little things, it's like, those are all nice attributes, assets on the side. But if you don't have the environment for people to really grow into, doesn't matter what else you throw at them.
Yeah, and there's still silos out there, despite all this talk of this hybrid work with collaborations and so on. But there's still silos in many companies there. What can leaders do to break them?
Well, first, understand why they exist. You know, one of the things I've discovered over the 20 plus years of working with organizations is that people are in silos because they have a sense of security in their authority. Their identity comes from their position of authority. So, you know, I'll make the joke, you know, what if somebody from the HR team came over to the sales team and said, hey, sales team, we've been thinking about how you guys could sell better, and we got a couple ideas for you. Well, of course, the sales team will be like, who do you think you are? Have you ever sold anything? You know, what do you know about? You're just in the HR team. And so they do this. They go, this is our thing. Here's our authority. We're experts at sales. You're experts at HR. You stay over there. And you stay in your lane. I'll stay in my lane. And what it disregards in my language is it disregards people who are bringing their heart and head. Like, they care. They use their imagination. They're probably doing exit interviews on people who have left the sales team. And so they're hearing things, taking things. And so they're using their thought. And so when they bring that into a different silo, if you will, the challenge is, first of all, the sales team is, just looking at hands. If you don't have the experience, if you don't have the education, if you haven't ever sold anything, then you don't count. Then your voice and your opinion doesn't matter. We only listen to salespeople. And that's where organizations miss a lot, Nick, is where they don't let the people who care contribute and cross-pollinate in ways. And so what I always say is that really the solution, there's 4 strategies, but the most important was a strategic invitation. How do we invite people from other departments and other areas and other locations to just sit in and be a part of a meeting we have, listen, and then be invited to contribute a thought or two, so it's not defensive, it's not threatening, and you create this environment where you start inviting people from different departments, different areas, different locations to come and be a part, and it creates this pollination where then you get the heart and head of people, their imagination, their care in every department, and that changes the dynamic of an organization.
Thank you. There's some great tips for the leaders there. And then when we're also looking at staff turnover, there's so much turnover these days, especially the senior leaders are saying, oh, the young ones, they are not resilient enough. They come, then they just leave. So how can organizations get on top of this and retain the talent and still expect strong performance?
Yeah, listen, that's a tightrope, and it's a balance, and it takes really great leadership, honestly. In the book that I wrote, I did a chapter on my son, who's 26, and I talked about the loyalty dilemma. Because, organization, like, nobody's loyal to anybody anymore. Organizations aren't loyal to their people, and people aren't loyal to and yet it's still this thing where we're like, we want people to stay and have a sense of loyalty. And, one of the things that as my son has transitioned different jobs every year. I mean, it's kind of a classic, and they've always been moves up, and they've always been for very specific reasons. And you realize he would love to stay in an organization for a long time if it didn't violate his loyalty to himself. Right? Like, that's the interesting dynamic. In generations before, they were willing to violate their own sense of self to serve the company, because it was like, well, that's what they're asking of me, that's what I'll do. And this next generation of leaders and those following have a sense of loyalty to themselves, because they're like, I see through social media, through TikTok, I see how other people are making decisions for their career. I see how other people are being treated. I see how other people are moving from one place to another, and it pays off. And so their loyalty is, how do I position myself to succeed best? And I want to do that in a place that I'm producing good work and having a meaningful career. And if the company, the leaders will continue to create that environment. And so the task for the leaders to say, we got to produce, we're not here to fulfill everybody's purpose in life. The people need to figure out how to align their purpose with what we're doing. We're trying to do a job here. We've got clients to serve, we've got customers to serve, we've got things we need to make and fix and bring to the marketplace. And so pressure of deadlines and all that. So it's not so much how do we retain them? It's how do we keep that sense of loyalty to themselves being aligned with the productivity here in our workplace. And it's not easy. Like, leadership is hard. Like, that's why it's tough. But it is possible, because this generation is not unlike any other generation that wants to be paid well, do meaningful work, be fulfilled in what they do, and feel like they're contributing something that matters. Period. Do that, and they're there for a lifetime. But who isn't? So it's not just a generational. We all want that.
Absolutely, Greg. And that's the line of work where I come in also as a coach. I do a lot of coaching and role plays with senior leaders, and really how to ask the right questions, how to listen, and how to get the younger generation to take that ownership, so they feel that this is my company, it's my culture, it's my ideas, rather than us pushing it down the throat of them, right?
Yeah. And what's interesting, Nick, I've had conversations where people are like, you know what? My company doesn't want owners. They just want followers. They don't want people, because ownership has autonomy. It's like, we want you to take ownership. Then they're like, okay, I'm going to take it, but that means I've got some autonomy. That means I've got some freedom. That means I'm going to take it means I might fail. It means it might not turn out like you thought it would turn out, or I might do it. And so it is a constant friction of how we empower people and guide them, and also give them the space to learn and grow.
Fantastic. I love that combination. And Greg, that's all the time we have today. It's been wonderful to have you on the show, to hear about your new book, Act as an Owner, and also for you to talk through the metrics. Any last wish or any last message to the listeners before we let you go today?
Nick, if someone is interested in connecting, they can go to greghawks.com or the actlikeanownerbook.com. I think you offer so many great tips and ideas in the coaching realm. And so just having this resource, my final word is keep following Nick, keep tuning in, keep listening, because even just little nuggets of insight and wisdom and information can expand your capacity. You can look back after a year of listening to these podcasts and being engaged and be like, man, I've really grown, and I've integrated some of those knowledge bits into my own life, and now I'm a better leader than I was. So that's it, Nick.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Greg. And thank you to all
welcome.
the listeners as well.